Welcome back. This is, I think, the 5th video on various examples of doing things recursively. And I'm going to concentrate on arrays and how to process arrays recursively. And so I'm going to go up here. Okay, this is where the first start of my examples are, forward print. And of course, when you do this, when you look at this code, you can always use a loop, okay, to do these type of operations. But I want you to start thinking recursively, all right? And I don't think you'll see any while loops or any looping of any type in my examples here, and that makes it a good recursive program. So forward print, what am I trying to do? Well, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to forward print the contents of this array here. Okay, I have an array of integers. So if my array of integers, pretend my array of integers is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are my values, 5 values in the array. What I would like to do is print that. Well, I'm going to call another helper, and basically what this says is pass it the list and pass it the index of where you want to start the actual print. I want to start printing an index 0. And so the idea here is if this works correctly, it will print all the elements in the list starting at index 0. It will print 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So how do we do this recursively? Let's go up here. Pass it the list. Pass it the index of where you want to start. As long as I is less than the length of the list, okay, because if I happens to be list.length or bigger, then there's no array. Like this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, index 4. If I ask for a 5th element out of a 5-element array, there's nothing to do, so you just exit out. Okay, so to print this thing, what you're going to do is print the ith element of the list. That's done. I printed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I print out the 1. And then what I'm going to do is forward print the list starting at index 1. So I printed out the 1, and then what's left is to print out the balance of the list like so, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if forward print worked correctly, that's what's going to happen. Now, notice the helper, I didn't have to give it different names because Java knows that this is a 1-parameter forward print, and this is a 2-parameter forward print, and so whenever you give it 2 parameters, it's going to go and execute that code. It's called overloading. Now, how do we reverse print? Okay, so if I pass it, if the array I pass it is the same array, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, to reverse print it, what I would do, that should give me 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 in reverse order. That's what I'm trying to do. How do you reverse print? It's almost the same thing. Okay, so if you take a look at the logic, the only real difference between forward printing and reverse printing is where you actually print the ith element. Okay, take a look at this. All right, here's the list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 comes in. If reverse print were to work correctly, this says print out the list starting with index I plus 1, and if that were to work correctly, what's going to happen is I plus 1. If I is 0, for now we don't print out the 1, we print out this part of the array. And if that were to work correctly, 5, 4, 3, and 2 get printed out. Okay, that's what gets printed out. We reverse print returns. Okay. Okay, close that. When this thing returns, we get that 5, 4, 3, 2 printed in reverse, and then we come back I is 0, list of 0. Then what happens is we're going to tack on the 1 at the end, okay, which would go here in the output. Easy peasy, very, very good. No loops, everything works great. Now, how do we do this type of thing? I don't like void methods. Void methods just output stuff to the screen, and you've got the basic engine here, but you don't have access to the results if they go right on the screen. So I'm going to do this. Let's take a look at the reverse array. Let's take a look at a reverse array. And basically it looks the same as the reverse print, but same type of parameters. I pass it an array, and what comes back instead of void is an integer array. That's what comes back. And basically, if I were to pass it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, pass it the index 0, what comes back is an array that's reversed, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's what's supposed to come back. Now, how do we work this out? Look at this. Okay, start the process here. The people see the public method. That public method calls reverse array with the starting index of 0 to start the process here. Okay, we come back here. All right, so line set to 171. If the index happens to exceed the length of the array, then there's nothing to print out. So basically what we're going to do is return an array of nothing. This is how you dynamically return arrays. This is an array of nothing. Okay, I actually like the space there. That looks better. Okay, execution comes here. Now what that means is you've got something to print, or something not print. You've got something to return. Let's pretend we want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 elements. We start at index 0. All right. You got to believe that if this were to work correctly, that's going to return an array of this balance, right? I plus 1. It should return 4, 5, 3, 2. That's what should return. That's what's inside that array. Okay, so temp is a pointer to an array of 5, 4, 3, 2. What we're going to do is create another array that's got temp.length plus 1, temp.length plus 1. So this is going to return an array that contains 5, 4, 3, 2, 4 elements, but the array that we started with was a 5-element array. We got to create the storage for that array, 5 elements, one more than temp.length plus 1. This will be an array of 4 elements. Temp.length plus 1 would be 5 elements. This is a nice little way to copy the contents of the temp array to the return value. And once we've got that those elements copied into my returned array, I can go ahead and take the indexed value, list of index, and dump it at the very end of the array. Return that array and you're done. Okay? And we'll do one more just to be cool about this, and that is, at this point, arrays are good, but array lists are better because they're dynamic. Okay, their size just grows to your problem. And say we would like to return an array list instead of an array. Well, that's not a problem. We pass it the array list, and inside that array list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same process. Come over here. If index is bigger than the list size, then return an empty array list. Otherwise, what we're going to do is call this reverse array list. Okay, so if index is 0, that reverse array list will return the list, the contents of the list from 1 on, so that would return 5, 4, 3, 2. Okay, and then what we're going to do is tack on. See, grab the list that you passed it, grab that index and add it to the temp, and then return that temporary array list. This seems a lot nicer. It's not as intense as this guy over here, but it's basically doing the same job with an array list object. And while we're here, how do we multiply all the elements? See, this multiply returns an integer. Okay, I pass it an array list. I would like to multiply all the elements of the array. This might have been a simpler example to show you at the very beginning, but let's see. What do we do? Well, start multiplying all the elements of that list starting with index 0. You're seeing a pattern here. You have an index that starts the process. Multiply all the elements of this list starting at index 0. Okay, if that index is bigger than the list, return 1, because that's how you multiply. You start with multiply. You multiply by 1. You can't return 0, because any multiplication you do with 0 would just be 0. Return 1. And then if I is actually an index into the array, a valid index, take that element, that indexed value, multiply it by this, okay, multiply it by that, and that's going to return. See, by what I've highlighted there is you got to believe that that multiplication function is going to take all the elements starting at index I plus 1 to the end, multiply them out, and return that product. That product gets multiplied by this to represent the multiplication from I to the end of the array. And you can take a look at the largest. The largest works exactly the same way. Okay, find the largest element. And I think we're pretty much done with this. I got one more example, which is the Tower of Hanoi. And the Tower of Hanoi is something, it's a classic example of recursion. It's an example, and I'll leave it at that. Classic example. We'll talk about that in the next video.